Hello, my name is YoungBae. It's my honor to be here to share my thought with you. Actually, this is a really good suggestion for BIS, Bank for International Settlement, and all those central banks like 한국은행 here. So my title is Game Changer of CBDC. It's a central bank digital currency. It's a fiat currency, but in a digital form, and digital economy. Let me get to the point. Here I will talk about suggestion for BIS and the central banks. In short, locus chain is one core blockchain technology. It's a public blockchain technology that would be an ideal alternative to the current system, and it completes transactions with unlimited scalability within 5.5 seconds, ideally, and at most 7 seconds practically, comparable to credit card latency. When you use credit card at store, it wouldn't take more than 5 seconds. If it goes over 10 seconds, then store manager will ask you to have another credit card. That's how that is so fast. And providing the finality of payments. Meaning, when you hand over your cash to the store manager, then that's the bid. It goes away. And the value is transferred to the other side. That's the finality of payments. When you transfer your money using your bank account and it goes away, then that completes the transaction. That is finality of payments. With the negligible transaction cost, now it's really important when you have to pay bigger portion, then that wouldn't be attractive. And so locus chain has good characteristics and a good capacity of nodes. So I would call it as a true game changer of retail CBDC and digital economy. So I suggest that locus chain would be worth considering as a strong candidate for CBDC technology. I'd like to define money first. Do you know what money is? Money is defined in terms of the three functions. The function is medium of exchange. You hand it over and you get your goods or services. That is a medium of exchange. And store of value. If you have more money, then you become wealthy. And the unit of account. It is used to express the value of anything. Coffee, 4,500, and your car is what? 2,200 won, say, and like that way. And the reason you take that cash or bank transfer, that is because the token or notes or account value has value, but intrinsically it's worthless. It's a number or just a paper. But people accept them as payment with the expectation that everyone else will take it. So that is purchasing power. It doesn't matter whether legally authorized or not. Like some Bitcoin or BPass or your GeoPuppet is a local money. You believe that you can exercise your purchasing power for the same amount. And CBDC, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning, central bank digital currency. That is a digital form, the digital form of a country's fiat money. You're like a one note. And right now, as of October of 2022, 105 countries representing over more than 95% of global GDP meaning almost every country are exploring this CBDC. If you look at the map, then you see that mid of Africa, they are not, like say, has studied yet. And I've been discussing with one country in that African continent since 2019, and we are developing our discussion to create certain type of CBDC with this locust chain. Then why do they matter? This digital currency has several motivations. They are, through this digital currency, they can get financial inclusion. So more people can access to these banking services, especially to those unbanked and underbanked populations, and also provide a cheaper and better access to money. Even in the United States, there are many people, about like I say, I don't know what percentage, they don't own bank accounts yet. And increasing efficiency in payments and lowering transaction cost. These days, you are using P2P in your payments, and this digital currency is exactly for it. And the last one, most important, is a programmable money. What does it mean by programmable? You heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example? It's a program, and you can add any function to it. If you want to add any function to that money, then you can add it. I will talk about this a little bit more. But the trouble is, the consensus mechanism fails two basic tests that is most essential for this banking system, fiat money. That is a scalability and finality. As I mentioned, if you hand it over your banknote, then that's the final of the transaction. But unfortunately, the current blockchain system, you have to wait until there is a finalized. It takes a long time. That's because this digital currency is based upon a linear chain that most of current blockchain technology is about. That is actually causing congestion, as you see here, to make blocks. All transactions are gathered and they go through one ledger, one by one in sequence. That's why if you have more transactions and more participants, then that becomes slow and slow. But in the conventional banking system that we have right now, if you go to your bank and if you send your money, then the bank is taking the corresponding figure out of your bank account and they are adding it back to the recipient. So that is that simple, and that is done really smoothly. But this digital currency, since they are, rather than individual treatment, they bring everything together and put those all records in one block in sequence. That's why it takes so long time. Ethereum is transaction per second. The former speaker mentioned about, like say, TPS, but the core technology of this current blockchain technology is Ethereum. An Ethereum transaction per day, and converting that into a second, and every second Ethereum can process only 11.5 transactions. That's really small number. Compared to those credit card transactions is sort of like a 5,000 or sometimes even more than 10,000 per second. So policymakers, like especially those people in this report here, I try to quote the report as is as much as possible. This one is written by those officers at the Bank for International Settlement, BIS, and they are saying that consensus mechanism typically involves broadcasting and waiting, relies on multiple messages before a transaction can be added to the ledger with the finality. It takes a long time. So they are concerned about the speed of this system. And even recently, this one is made by September 2022. This means last month. High officers of BIS, they point out the congestion and the scalability issue of digital currency. And even more, at the beginning, we were seeking for some convenient way, but at cheap price. But this Ethereum, as of October 23rd, to make one transaction is $0.65, meaning 65 cents is about like a 751 in Korean won to send your money. Is ironical. It's really expensive. That's the problem. And finality of payments. Bitcoin case. You heard of Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, to write it in one ledger, it takes 10 minutes. And to be finalized, you have to wait to get like 6 more blocks created. That is because of this structure. And another thing is, even though your transaction is recorded in one block, like in a couple, that one, at the end, that one is not recorded as official. So they all take that away and put that back in another record. So any transaction that is in that couple square, that is not finalized. That's the trouble. And so these days, those central bankers, they talk about CBDC, but their way of thinking is depending on what technology is first. They don't think of monetary system design first, but they're looking at the technology itself. So it's completely upside down. So I would say, if we have any technology, that one will be good for retail CBDC, meaning you can use it in your daily life. For example, you take a taxi and you use your digital currency. You don't need to wait 10 minutes like a Bitcoin case. After you get to your point. So that's you shouldn't do that, right? It should be processed right away. That's the first criteria to be a retail CBDC. And on top of it, we are facing new era that IoT world. All devices are connected. So devices, they communicate each other and they trade values. One most common case is when you drive your car and then your car is paying for the toll automatically. But that's not how your car is paying the toll. You are actually paying the toll. Your credit card is in. Without you, this credit card payment wouldn't work. So even in that world, without you, between device to device, they should be able to trade each other of those values. And another one, have you heard of Metaverse? Metaverse world. Your avatar will work for you in the coming years. And that avatar should be able to pay or trade goods and services for themselves. They cannot use your credit card. They cannot use your bank account. They should have their own way to settle their transactions. So in those days, if central bank is not ready for that kind of environment in that ecosystem, that will be less attractive. So central bank, fiat money wouldn't be selected by those people. So I would say central bank considering CBDC should pay attention to recent development of blockchain technology that solves all those requirements. So at this point, I'd like to point out my title one more time, Game Changer of Real CBDC and Digital Economy. What would be the requirement to fulfill this requirement? My suggestion is that a public blockchain technology would be an ideal alternative to the current system if it has a DAT-based distributed ledger, so it can solve congestion and scalability issue. And Byzantine fault tolerance consensus algorithm, that is actually, you don't need to wait like 6 more blocks of creating. It's done right away. So that's the finality of payments. That should be there if you want to use that technology for your daily payments, your retail trade. So with those, then blockchain technology that completes transactions, as I told you, within 5 seconds and at most 10 seconds. So that's how consumers will choose this one relative to credit card transactions and providing finality of payments with the negligible transaction cost. So I will reiterate what I told you. Specs required to function as an infrastructure of the current monetary system is perfect decentralization, and that blockchain should have a high speed and low fee and low requirement for mining, and it should be ready for post-quantum computing. surveyed all those available public blockchains, and I can nail it down to this diagram. So scalable public blockchain with low fee, that's a good candidate for the retail CBDC. And when I looked at all those current blockchains, they were highly focused on increasing the speed, meaning the higher number of transactions per second, TPS. But Locust Chain views scalability not just as a problem of speed, but also in terms of solving ledger size of node for mining and network overload problems. So no public blockchain is all over there. In Korea, Busan, in Asian countries, global. And the speed in network is really important. But that is given. The trouble is how you can minimize the size of information you carry at the same time. So that is network bandwidth. So how Locust Chain is organizing its capacity. There are like three patented technologies to meet the requirement of retail CBDC. The first one is, I mentioned it here and there, BFT consensus algorithm with DAG ledger system. That is for finality, handing over, then that's it, right? And unlimited scalability. So it doesn't matter how many people are participating in this system, the speed doesn't go down. And verifiable pruning of ledger. Now this node, which is mining, they should have much premium capacities to maintain the record of those blocks. It shouldn't do that. They shouldn't go that way. And the other one is to keep this network overload problem, to resolve this issue, dynamic sharding is needed. And Locust Chain, the first one and the second one is patented already in Korea and is pending in those United States and EU, Japan, and China. And dynamic sharding is pending here with Korea, in Korea as well. So this is one, the content of DAG ledger system using BFT verification consensus mechanism, the patent, the content of the patent. So to explain this, I'd like to mention this one more time. While most blockchains have linear chain structures, that's why that is causing congestion and hinders this finality of payments. Locust Chain is handling creating their blocks in a parallel structure. Instead of putting everything into one block, it handles on an account basis. It's similar to the banking system. Banking account, you change this record, the sender and the receiver. And this Locust Chain is processing these records on an account basis. So in parallel means it doesn't matter how many participants, how many transactions are there. This Locust Chain ensures scalability for any size of traffic. The speed doesn't go slow. And verifier pruning is This one is to be a node, meaning to be a miner. They should keep the whole information from the beginning. So that requires much bigger memory space. That means this system, Ethereum, they should pay for that. If they cannot get that compensation for maintaining the service, then they wouldn't do this. So with this structure, they have to pay a lot. That's why the cost for using this blockchain technology is really expensive. But this locus chain is designed to keep lower memory size. At most, it requires 10 gigabytes. That is maybe 1/4 of your smartphone. So even your smartphone can be used for mining. And this one is about dynamic sharding. If you saw all transactions are going through one hole to go into blocks in sequence, but this locus chain is partitioning into several blocks so that they communicate within the block, so that it's much more efficient to come to the stable record. And with these two functions, dynamic sharding and what is the verified pruning process, lower occupation of network bandwidth is really important, as I mentioned. So even while you are playing your game using your smartphone, still your smartphone can be used for mining. So while you're using your smartphone, you can make money out of mining. And then there's another possibility there. In your home, there are online connected devices. One is your TV set-top box. That is, when you're away, still that is on. And that can be used for mining, meaning it can be your locus chain node. So this is what it is. So in one word, what makes locus chain superior to other public blockchain technology? I mean, I'm not trying to exaggerate what it is, but I'd like to share what it is as is. Perfect decentralization, unlimited performance. Here, latency is important. Every transaction, it doesn't take more than 7 seconds. Not on average. It's every transaction. And scalability and finality of payments. And low requirement for node. So that's how we come to commercially competing low prices, low fees. So that's how we can invite more people into this. So truly, locus chain is good for high frequency transactions, such as retail CBDC, like you're using in daily life as a cash, and infrastructure for smart city, and engine for metaverse is coming soon to you. Just one more, please. So my suggestion for BIS and central bank, locus chain is a public blockchain technology that would be an ideal alternative to the current system and complete transactions with unlimited scalability within 0.5 seconds, half second, and at most 7 seconds. It's almost the same as credit card latency, and providing the finality of payments with negligible transaction cost. So, based on this argument here, I claim that Locust Chain is the true game changer of retail CBDC and digital economy. So, I will let them know, and please let them know, Locust Chain would be worth considering as a strong candidate for CBDC technology. Thank you.